Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 24th, 2022 regular business meeting of Board of School Trustees held in public with a start time of 6 o'clock. If you may all rise, we're going to ask Mr. Angel to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Angel. Let me mention as we get started that we have Mr. Hoffman joining us remotely through the phone up here, so we'll try to include him in when needed. Start our meeting off with patrons registered to comment on educational issues. Here it is. Dr. Terrell, we have two members to comment here. The names are familiar from the past. Do I need to read the guidelines? Should I go through the guidelines this evening? Okay, we'll continue reading that. As we've done in the past, it's beneficial to everybody to hear the guidelines that we have set up for comment, just so we don't have any issues. The board will hear patrons, legal residents of Center Township or Winfield Township wishing to comment on educational issues at the regular business meeting of the School Board of Trustees held in public. Patrons must sign this sign-up sheet provided in the back of the boardroom prior to the start of the meeting. When their names are called to address the board, they will please move to the podium in front of the room, state their names and addresses, and the topic at which they will be addressing. If patrons have prepared written statements on topic, they may present them at this time. A time limit of 3 minutes is allowed for each speaker. We've asked Mr. Angel to be our clockman. He'll generally give you a 30-second warning, and at 3 minutes, he'll ask you, we'll cut you off at 3 minutes. The portion of the meeting during which participation of the public is invited shall be limited to 20 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. Let me scroll down. Speakers are to refrain from speaking on personnel issues and student issues. This is an important one to we need to be very disciplined and not crossing the line of speaking on personnel issues as we receive comment. So that wraps that up. And our first speaker this evening, Brent Holding. Please come forward.
Good evening. Brent Holding, 2576 West 127th in Crown Point. I wanted to comment on the state of the mask mandates and everything going on with that. Again, want to make sure I'm not blaming any person or persons in particular. Just kind of a general disappointment with how things are structured. I think for people keeping a close eye on the dashboard of the past few weeks, we've noticed that things are getting updated well after the fact. Things from 2 weeks ago are getting updated. Numbers are not being updated on a day-to-day basis, and I think it's due to the nature of the way the numbers are being counted, that whether again deliberately or just through the nature of it, they aren't being reported in a timely manner. It's very open to manipulation or just untimely data, and I'd like to suggest a different metric for when to institute the mask mandate, something tied to the Lake County numbers, the local numbers, rather than specifically, numbers that are being reported. That's a fallible metric, whereas the county, the Board of Health numbers are much more solid and reliable. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Sarah Miller. Good evening.
Hi, Sarah Miller, 6224 West 136th Avenue in Cedar Lake. I just want to know what the end goal is. It's COVID policy, I'm sorry. I just want to know what your guys' end goal is. I was happy with the updated policy. It's a good first step, but the end goal should really be that we do away with masks and give parents the choice for their kids, because we knew from the beginning that cloth masks weren't doing the job. And it was just, I feel like you guys are just kind of appeasing the other side who's a little more fearful and wants everyone to wear a mask, because we know the kids are the least susceptible, and we really shouldn't even be tracking based on infection numbers. We should be looking at the danger and not putting the burden on the children. And I know now the government wants to give tax-funded N95 masks, which are not going to fit the kids, And that's definitely not something I'm going to be willing to put on my child. So I just hope that you guys progress from here and not go backwards and listen to real data and not just fear and pandering to useless protocols. So that would be all I ask. Thank you.
Just in case anybody missed our deadline or opportunity to sign up on the clipboard this evening, did anybody miss that opportunity, Mrs. Green? Okay, we just wanted to make sure with the maybe slow start. Yeah,
Let me jump
Dr.
in
Terrell?
here if I could. So for our public, just want to remind those who are listening or watching, it's our practice is that our board does not interact with questions that come up during the public comment time. But I would like to make a couple of comments just based off of things that I heard tonight. One is regarding the data and how that is recorded. I want to ensure everyone out there, we are not trying to skew this information one way or the other, rather to keep our schools below 2% so students don't have to wear masks, or above 2% where students have to wear masks. And what I would like to do tonight is ask Mr. Akiwa, who works with our nurses daily, continually throughout the day, just to give everyone just a brief update on what that process looks like and what are some of the challenges that come about with how that data changes and how it comes in. So, Mr. Akiwa?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Terrell. Here, my power's on. Thank you, Dr. Terrell. I first want to go ahead and congratulate our nurses for a great job that they're doing out there in the buildings. They have quite a bit to deal with on a regular basis, and they're just a phenomenal staff. That includes our subs that, you know, fill in for our folks when they're not in. But in essence, the buildings report to us in a spreadsheet those that have reported being positive and those that have been their close contacts. When they receive this data, we're assigning that particular case to the date of last exposure in the school, when that particular positive was exposing students in the school or others in the school, okay? And it's difficult because that data may come to us from a parent or a staff member saying, I wasn't feeling well several days ago, I stayed home, I waited to see if I was feeling better, I got tested, it took days for me to get the test, I tested positive, and then that reaches all the way back to when that first symptom was or when they were last in the building exposing somebody. So I don't know that anybody's really doing anything intentionally to delay the data. It's just how this information comes to us. And we work just as hard as possible to get that up and accurate for the school community to see. We're not holding on to anything or you know, keeping it in our pocket to wait to share it at the right time. I mean, when it comes to us, we put it up. We do have some challenges where our largest building, Crown Point High School, might be hit with many cases all at once, and that takes, you know, maybe the next day for them to finish that to get to us. So there might be a lag if they happen to have a bunch of reports on a given day. But all of our other buildings do an incredible job of getting that to us. It's just depending on the particulars of the case, when it's reported to us, when that person got their results back, and when they were feeling that first symptom, that directs us to which particular date to assign it to on the chart. Now, help me if I've confused anybody right there, but hopefully I did a decent job. And Brooke and I work with this all the time. Did I do okay there? Okay, super. So
Great.
I don't know if that was acceptable.
That's
Dr. Taylor,
perfect. So the other thing I would just remind our public that if you do have questions, you can go to our website to the COVID information. We are updating FAQs there as we need to based off of different things that come in, and also continuing to monitor not only our own data, but the county and state data and information that is released as well. So we appreciate everyone's patience with this. We realize that we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of slowing the curve, and we continue to do what we can to keep our schools open. Appreciate our parents and how they report and when they report, just so that we can have the best information and data that we can. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Dr. Terrell, when Mr. Key was speaking, there's one thing that was brought to my attention, and you cleared up for me last week, and I think it's important to mention this, is that there's a perception that data is delayed because nurses are so overwhelmed that they can't report it. And there may be, the way that you explained it to me, and it made me feel better about the process. Sure, there could be an exception, but it's not an exception that's taking days. And generally speaking, the elementaries, it's just the data coming to them with a lag, not them being able to turn it over timely. And I think that I heard enough of it to concern me that they were so overwhelmed that they couldn't get it over here to central office quick enough. And maybe a case or two that happened, but generally speaking, that is not the case.
Yeah, if I may
Please.
just make a comment. Our larger buildings are the ones that are feeling that. You know, the elementary schools are just, due to the size of the numbers of people in the building, they may not get as many reports any given day. But when we came off a break, the high school was really getting quite a few. And Mondays are kind of a big day, you know, because people are waiting after the weekend to see how they're feeling, and then they go get tested right before Monday. So Mondays seem to be very, very busy for us in general. But yeah, I just, again, thank you to our nurses for all of the hard work they are doing out there. In addition to running their clinics and handling their students with needs that do need some medical care and support during the day, and just those fluid things that happen. I mean, it's just an amazing job they're doing out there. So thank you, nursing crew.
Thank you. Good. Item 3, consent agenda, Dr. Terrell.
So for your consideration this evening, we have 3.01 minutes from the meetings that are listed there. 3.02, the uniform conflict of interest disclosure statements. 3.03, our personnel agenda. 3.04, the voucher registered checks as displayed and listed in your report.
We've heard the consent agenda as presented. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A move by Mr. Angel and second by Mr. Smith. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Hoffman was an aye remotely. Sorry, Mr. Smith, I saw you trying to hit your trigger there at the last second before we move forward. Did you? Sorry, I didn't think.
I did, and I apologize to revisit, but I think one other question that I had, I think, Artie, you might be able to explain this, but all the information that comes to us about COVID to the schools then is reported to the county, correct?
That's correct. Our nurses do a wonderful job of placing all of that positive data and post-contact data in what is called the portal. Yes, that's correct. As fast as they can do it. You know, if they have a really busy day, they're reporting that information all the way into the nights, like 6, 7 o'clock sometimes. If they've got a very busy day, they're staying there working over.
So all our positive cases would be reflected on the dashboard for the county, correct?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any sort of delay. All I can speak to is that our folks here are putting that into the system in a rapid, timely manner. I'm not sure how things work over there on their dashboard.
Thank you.
Yeah, information items, superintendent discussion groups. Mr. Smith, anything happening in Cedar Lake?
No, I'm following the meetings and the minutes, and no, nothing. They're just getting their facade grants and their TIF district discussions and addressing that, but nothing that would have the impact on Crown Point schools.
Mr. Hoffman, you able to hear me? Anything going on in Crown Point that we maybe of interest for the schools?
Crown Point is pretty much business as usual. Winfield actually had a reorganization meeting, elect their new officers, and they've got a couple of things on their longer range agenda that they're looking at. So maybe have something further from Winfield in the not too distant future.
Thank you. then Skillman did share with the superintendent and share down the board that we had some beams going up at the new site for TAF. So it was exciting to see cool drone coverage. How about moving forward to 4.02, Director of Elementary Education, Mr. Mears?
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank our building administration. They have really exhibited the utmost of leadership, flexibility, strong communication throughout our school year, and they continue to do so as recently as today. I think that their really commitment to seeing all of our students grow is exemplified every day. So I just really want to thank them. I also want to thank our assistant principals at the elementary level, this being the first year that we have assistant principals, and they have just taken on such hands-on roles within the building, engaging with our families, making relationships with students and staff, and their partnership with principals has really been very impactful. So I'm very grateful that we have assistant principals starting this year in our elementaries, and look forward to the work that they will continue to do.
Thank you. Mr. Mears, I also want to mention, I have a couple children in the school. They attend Lake Street, and I just want to share some positive news that we all know that the remote learning is difficult, to challenge. We've had a year of it last year that, some could argue was, even more than difficult and challenging. But the communication that we've received as a family this year, and, I don't know where this pipes down from. It could be the individual teachers, it could be the building leaders, it could be yourself being involved, but the communication this year and the way it's come to us has been very helpful. So if you didn't know that, I'd like to share it with you as a parent, and if you do, I want to thank you. It's been very helpful.
Thank you for that feedback. I'm sure that the principals and the teachers will be very appreciative to hear that, as they are always committed to strong partnerships with families and want to make sure that two-way communication. So thanks for sharing that.
Thanks. Director of Secondary Education, Mr. Gianfermi.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members. I want to use my time to just kind of point out some points of pride of things that are going on in secondary education. And we'll start with the Crown Point High School Quiz Bowl team. Won the Indiana Association School Principals Quiz Bowl Area Tournament, beating Andrean High School in the final on Saturday, and they'll move on to the state championship now. So we are wishing Coach Smith and all his quiz bowlers good luck as they move forward, and hopefully they'll be up here getting an accommodation for a state championship for us. Also, I want to point out, I don't know if you guys were aware, but during the college football playoff championship, a couple of our teachers had a really unique opportunity, and I'm going to rely on Ms. Ramirez for the elementary teacher, but our secondary teacher, Jeremy Walker, was one out of 18 teachers across Indiana that were invited to participate on a whole weekend of events. So they went down there, and they were actually on the field on the game day. I think Mr. Walker was carrying the Michigan flag. I, being from Michigan, I didn't have anything to do with that, but just happened to be that way. So they just participated in a whole bunch of things throughout the whole week, and they just came back so excited. And I think Mr. Walker, and of course they represented us well down there, but Mr. Walker was really excited that he finished his first 5K walk run as one of the events. So that was, he's a great person, and it's great recognition for him. And our elementary teacher was...
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up, Mr. Gianfermi. Jennifer Pollitt from Timothy Ball, who was our local elementary teacher of the year, was also recognized during this event, which was really great event. It was a weekend long, everything from formal dinners to opportunities to network with professional development, concerts, different types of celebrations. So they were really well recognized and so very deserving. So thank you for bringing that up. And congratulations to both Mr. Walker and Mrs. Pollitt.
Thank you. It's only 6:20, so I have a few other things to point out. So I did want to point out that over the weekend, Crown Point High School had its turnabout dance. Over 800 students enjoyed the annual dance put on by our dance coaches and our dance parents, who always do an amazing job. And it was great to see. We had a great event, free of incidents, so everything was nice and safe. And we got, weather being, you're always a little worried about that turnabout, but everyone got through it. Let's just catch the middle schools real quick here. Colonel Wheeler's robotics team won a tournament over the weekend, and now I've qualified for the state tournament, so that's good. We have a middle school robotics team advancing. And let's just go back to the dance team, TAF dance team. keeping their tradition of excellence with Coach Andy Vassar. 3 out of 4 first places in their tournament over the weekend, so they had an extra weekend as well. So those are just some things recently happening that maybe just keep you up to date with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gianfermi. And 4.04, Director of Exceptional Education, Ms. Paskus.
Good evening, Mr. Warney, members of the board. A couple of department updates. In what can be an impossible task even in the summer, here in the middle of the year, we were able to add an additional speech-language pathologist and a behavior specialist through some of our COVID grant money that was allotted to special education through our Part B grants. So we're really excited to add them to our team. In addition, tomorrow night kicks off our Exceptional Learners High School basketball season. So tomorrow night at 6 p.m., they play the Lowell Red Devils at the high school. So come out and catch a game if you can.
Thank you. And Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Hardman.
Yeah, first of all, with today's school cancellation that occurred late, we had probably 50 students at childcare that were already at the sites. And it becomes one of those things that trying to take care of the children from 6 o'clock to 6:30 in a way that just provides for them. They went out of their way today to be able to provide the child care services for our children. With the unplanned and being able to manage each of our sites and have staffing available there was really very well done. Kendra Daves, who is a secretary in our office, coordinates that. Our site leaders, Kathy Kish, Kathy Morrow, and Carolyn Lawson, just did a fantastic job to make sure that students were cared for and provided the e-learning atmosphere for their learning throughout the day. So I think my first comment would be they did just a fantastic job of covering and making sure the children were cared for. The other thing I wanted to comment on is, teachers and our student learning and continue to develop our staff to be able to meet student needs is ongoing. I mean, I've been here for a number of years, and it's never stopped as we hone and we polish our skills. Even now as we approach February, March, and the rest of the year, there are things that are happening to help us meet the needs of our children. And those kinds of things are trying to help our teachers to think about universally what kinds of strategies can work for any child. Not just this child, but any child. And we're going through a process that we are working with our staff. They're working with Mr. Gianfermi, Mrs. Ramirez, and Mrs. Paskus, and others, building principals, to really try to polish the skills of our teachers to meet the needs of our students. And then along with that, to be able to have the coaching and the resources that are necessary for us to do this is just exceptional. I would thank you, Dr. Terrell, for the opportunities that we have to be able to really polish the skills of our staff. This has been an exciting year, I believe, for us with that taking place. And just wanted to just say thank you, but just know that the skills of teachers continue just to get polished each and every year. And it's really great to see the commitment that we have from our staff for that to occur. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardman. Chief Human Resource Officer, Mr. Akiwa.
Thank you, Mr. President, board members. First, I would like to, while we're thanking individuals beyond the nurses, I think it needs to be stated that all of the staff members in our buildings have done an outstanding job fluidly, daily, covering for absences due to COVID with staff members to make sure that the school day just maintains its momentum. It's not optimal anywhere right now, but we have got some impressive folks out there in our buildings every day, dealing with inconvenience due to staff absence, and they're incredibly creative in how they're getting, courses covered and getting that curriculum delivered. So just thank you to all of our teachers, support staff, and any of those folks in the building for keeping the school machine running despite all the things we're dealing with. And that goes beyond the school building. This includes the transportation department, where we've got folks in that office that are trained and licensed to drive buses that are jumping on buses to cover routes as well. Custodial staff and food service staff. So just thank you, Crown Point Community School Corporation employees, for going the extra mile during these tough times. Just proud to be a part of this organization because of that. As far as HR right now, I think the last time I commented, we were rolling up into the next school year, and we're getting very close to arriving at what we feel to be our necessary staffing additions for next year based on numbers, okay? And we're also taking a look at every free space that we have in all of our buildings because we're running out of space. But that being said, we're going to make sure that we're properly staffed and ready to go for the fall. And we'd like to go ahead and get some postings and interviews going as soon as we can to get some of those positions solidified, so we're ready to roll come August. And thanks to our administrators and all of our staffs involved in making those decisions based on numbers in our building.
Thank you, Mr. Kiwa. Mr. Reese, anything from the business office?
I have no report this evening.
Thank you. And Ms. Allen, Director of Communications?
Thank you. Good evening. Next to each of your computers, I placed a copy of the upcoming We Are CP publication. It's an advanced copy, so residents should expect to see those in their mailboxes the second week of February.
Thank you. Yeah, see, y'all didn't know what we were laughing at. It's got Mr. Hoffman's dog's got a comical, cartoonish bark, I would say. Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Terrell.
I'd like to give you just a brief update on our construction projects. So we had 12 truckloads of steel delivered to Taft, and they actually have structures up out there now. You can begin to see the academic wing taking shape. It's real exciting to see that going in. Footers have been poured around the edge of the building. Now you can see the outline of what's going to take place there. At the high school, we have begun demolition within the building in the southeast corner of the building. And just today, Mr. Reese and I were able to meet with the mayor and his team, and our permits will be coming through on that, so we'll begin seeing work going on the outside of the high school as well. Also then, plans have been submitted to the city for Timothy Ball, and we will be meeting with both MacArthur staff and Timothy Ball staff tomorrow and then Wednesday to roll out the final plans of what that's going to look like for them, working with Cedar Lake as well. I've got a meeting scheduled here coming up with the officials there to continue to move forward with that. And at the same time then, working through all the additional projects that we're taking on, including the rest of the elementary schools that haven't been touched yet, and then also Wheeler as well, making sure that we bring it up to where it is similar in both size and function and capacity with what is going to be at the new Taft Middle School. So the projects are coming along great. Want to thank Skillman and Dion, their work there to make sure that with the supply issues that we're facing around the country with construction products, they've been very proactive to be able to make sure that we're on target with where we need to be. The weather has been relatively cooperative thus far, minus the snow that we had this morning and last night. But otherwise, they're moving right along, so appreciate their efforts there as well. Also, the other thing that I'd like to bring forward to you, mentioned meeting with the mayor and his team today, is just the increased partnership with the city of Crown Point and being able to continue to develop relationships there and looking at some opportunities that I think can really be beneficial for both our school
Corporation, but also the City of Crown Point. And just again, trying to extend what we can do to really help each other and assist each other. And then also the same thing with Cedar Lake and opportunities that are coming there, and then with the town of Winfield as we continue to move forward. So I feel like we're moving in a really good direction as far as our partnerships there and serving our communities.
Thank you, Dr. Terrell. Item 5, we have other business of the Board of School Trustees. Opportunity to have a little bit of discussion if needed, or ask any questions. Do we have anything this evening we'd like to?
Due to popular after today's snow, can either Mr. Akiwa or yourself, Dr. Terrell, explain just our procedure for calling off school or making a decision, knowing that sometimes we might get it right, sometimes maybe not, but it's all based on timing and how the actual school day plans out?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to.
Thank you.
So one of the things I will tell you, when it comes to snow, it's a lot more of a moving target than it is if it's cold temperatures. So anticipating very cold temperatures on Wednesday morning, we'll be able to make that call if we're going to do something probably tomorrow afternoon, just because when they predict wind chills and cold temperatures, that's pretty much set in stone. As far as snow goes, you never know. I mean, they could say we're going to get 6 inches and we get a dusting, or we're going to get a dusting and we get 6 inches. The challenge that comes with that is when you're looking at a district as large as ours and covering as much ground as we cover, our Director of Transportation is out driving roads early in the morning. Takes an hour, a little over an hour, to do the entire boundary of the district from one end to the other to try and get an idea of what's going on with that, and thus increasing the challenge there. With that, though, then is the communication that takes place with both myself, but then also with the city, with other departments, and looking at what's going on there. Communicating with other districts in the immediate area to see what they're seeing as well. Understanding that we still have unique challenges here just simply because we have rural to city that we have to work through. So because we start our route so early, we have to make some kind of call typically by 5 is what we're looking at. There are times where we have to make that just a little bit later, and that really puts us in a bind. This morning was particularly a challenge as you get out there, and we were able to get our secondary students into our buildings without incident, which we were very pleased with. As we are out there driving all the different roads, now that you put buses out there, now obviously they're covering a lot more than what we can cover with just our Director of Transportation or myself helping out and driving roads as well. So then we get a better look at what is actually happening. Today presented us a situation where we felt like, you know what, we were able to get our secondary students in without incident. We were really concerned that there could be an incident for the elementaries, so that's why the call was made. Understanding that puts a lot of people in a bind, not taking that lightly, but ultimately the safety of our kids trumps that, and that's the reason why the call was made today. I can tell you that it wasn't made without considerable consideration with what the ramifications would be, but again, like I said, we just truly felt like it was something that we needed to do based off of the conditions that we were experiencing at that time.
Any other business of the board, or
I think
questions
it's
for
something that I just want to throw out there today to the group is, it did come up during the patron comments, is I think we eventually do have to have that discussion of what the end game is with our COVID policies, and talk about when are we done, when is enough enough. I'm not looking to hash that out right now, but that's a very legitimate concern that a lot of people in the community have. So we've always relied on metrics and making decisions based on numbers and data, and we have to continue to do that. But I think we need to start kind of considering when is this over? How is it going to be? The buildings remain maskless for a certain amount of time. Is it going to be a positivity rate? Which data are we going to use to make that decision? So that's just something that I would toss out there. I'd like to make it known that my personal opinion right now is, although I voted for the current policy that's in place and supported that as a way to keep kids out of masks, I want it to be known that I am for the removal of masks under all circumstances at this point, based on what the virus is doing and the situation the community is in. I think a lot of us have gone from knowing an occasional person that's had COVID last year to now everyone we know has had it, essentially. And so I think it warrants a conversation as to how that affects us in our buildings.
I think taking this opportunity to have conversations like this is healthy and helpful. And I'm sure there's opinions flying around right now in all directions. I'm not personally pressed at this moment to even consider, to me, it's like, hey, we're just finally getting in a little bit of routine. I appreciate those that want to push it a little bit. I respect those that are still questioning why we're not in masks all the time. Continue to kind of be in the middle of the road myself, but at this very moment, I'm thinking to myself that we had a decision at a November board meeting about a plan that's being executed right now. To me, in my mind, I feel like we're still on the first lap. We're just getting started in this plan and hoping to see this plan continue to work itself out successfully. Just a little, we've had these conversations one-on-one in the past, and like I said, I don't think it's always a bad idea to have them open with each other, and I don't think either one of us have really changed our thought process along the way. And I wanted to take a second too to mention we've had the emails come through on both sides, as always. I did have the opportunity to have a few phone calls with those questioning why we're not in masks all the time, phone calls with those thanking us for the current situation. I've tried to remain as consistent as I can be. I take those phone calls that you guys, right now as the point person for us, anyone could have the phone calls, but generally I'll respond to the emails first. I think they're helpful. Every time I've hung up with someone, whether we've disagreed the entire conversation or agreed the entire time, it has been helpful in this situation, I feel like, to me, to talk it out. And I bring that up because there are a few people that I offered the response to the email. So you could, please feel free to give me a call. They reached out over the last couple of weeks. I was pulled away with taking care of some family business and wasn't able to respond. They were gracious to say, okay, when you're able to get back to us, and I've not done that yet. So anybody who is listening, I'll be available again, or any of the board members are always available to have that phone call. I just happen to be the point person who might hit that first email out or offer the number before anybody else. But Scott, I just want to kind of take that chance or opportunity here to throw those thoughts back and forth like you did. I think it's helpful when we get that out there. Anyone else want to contribute to any COVID conversation or policies? Mr. Smith?
I'll join in.
And let me correct myself too. Not policies, but plans, because there's a big difference between we've all kind of thrown that word around. I just did it myself, but there's a big difference between a policy and a plan.
Join in this discussion about that.
Yes.
For the same reasons I support the mask optional, which is a parent's choice to put a mask on their child as they believe it's in their best interest to do so. I would equally support a parent who thinks it's best for their child to wear a mask. And to me, logically, one goes with the other. It just makes sense. I think parents have the right to parent their children and do what they think is right for their children. So at this point in time, I haven't given much thought to what you raised, Mr. Babjack, but at this point in time, I'm very comfortable with the current policy and moving forward for those stated reasons.
Well, this is getting interesting now. Yes, I agree with everything you said, but under our current policy, there is a trigger that does not allow the parents to make that decision. So that's the part of the policy that I am proposing that we possibly move on sooner rather than later.
We can circle back to that if necessary. I wanted to bring up Dr. Terrell and Brian. We were involved with a lunch with the city, late fall. And Mr. Smith has been mentioning that some towns around the state, put banners up for their high school athletes, and we just happened to notice them pop up around the square, and don't really know where the root of that was, but I think it's really neat, something that we think gives a nice, spirit to our community, honors the athletes. Right, we don't necessarily know where that came from, maybe a mom's club or somebody helped out, but.
It was the football moms club.
Okay,
I
the
didn't know.
basketball? Football for basketball, or
It was football. I'm not aware that they did it for basketball.
there's some basketball players,
Oh,
basketball
okay.
players, yep.
I'm not
yep.
sure on that one. I just
So-
know the football moms, because when it was brought up at that one meeting, I had some moms reach out, so.
Excellent. That is very noticeable. Other business that I want to mention, I've mentioned the last couple meetings, don't want to forget, don't want to let this 4-hour potential retreat drift off into summertime where as much as we love hanging out with each other, right? We don't need to do that on a nice June night. So let's get this retreat on the books for sometime February or March. So I know Mr. Hoffman may have a topic or two. We've thrown a couple around, but we need to get that to Dr. Terrell so he can invite the proper people to give us any conversation opportunity we may need, or data explained to us in deeper than maybe we've already seen it. So we don't want to forget about that.
Did we narrow it down to a certain week? I remember us talking about it, but I don't remember.
I do not think we have. I think it's been just open, and we need to.
Well, let's huddle up maybe before everybody leaves and knock that out now.
At this point, being the last week of January, we probably are looking late February, early March, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be a board meeting the later week of February. Maybe we could just start looking to a calendar for the first week of March. Is that before we get into the spring break time? And
Yeah, the sooner we plan it, the better.
Yep, good. Anything else? Any other business? Mr. Hoffman, is there anything you'd like to add to other business this evening?
I have nothing.
Okay. If nothing else, let's move forward to board statements of appreciation. We'll start with Mr. Smith.
Thank you, David. Tonight, I leave the sports stuff. There's a lot going on. I'll leave it to the sports guys, so hopefully you clean that up. I know you will. So I want to go off point a little bit, but, this is not typical or ordinary, but I want to recognize, David lost his grandfather this week, and I want to recognize him. I know how close he was, you were to him and what he meant in your life, and I think I'm pronouncing it right, Ralph Gargano. And so I had an opportunity to go over and just visit with the family, and, I could see the impact that he had on your family and your life, and, I just want to take a moment to recognize him because I think this is your 7th year on the board, your 5th as board president, or maybe longer, Dave, if I misspoke, but close, all right. But I think beyond this, just even beyond the board and the school corporation where we receive your guidance and your benefit and your time, you give to your community all the time, personally. And to see that, to have the experience where I got to meet, hear stories about your grandfather and kind of person he was, it obviously came from him, and he imparted so much of that into your life that we collectively as a community receive that benefit for. So I just want to say, I want to recognize him and the sacrifices and the time that he took to put that into you, and want to let you know that, you're, for your family, you're in our thoughts and prayers. So.
That's much appreciated. Thank you.
Nothing for me tonight.
Mr. Hoffman, you hear us okay? Mr. Hoffman, can you hear us okay? I thought I might have just heard a click a second ago. Oh, here we go.
I had it on mute, it went dark, and I couldn't find it.
I thought I might have heard something there. Would you like to add anything for board statement appreciation, recognition?
I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Angel.
I only had one of them, but then Mr. Smith's comment about, I want to make sure I included everything that I know that's going on. First of all, to Scott Reed, our assistant girls basketball coach, is retiring of coaching after 40 years. So congratulations to Coach Reed and all the lives he influenced with his coaching knowledge and with our girls basketball program. To our wrestling team, who won the state wrestling championship. What school is that at, Mr. Reese? Brownsburg, and beat Brownsburg in the title by 2 points? Correct. So congratulations to all our wrestlers, as they're continuing to be nationally ranked. I think they were 11, but moved up to 9, if I heard last. 10th, okay. And then to our girls gymnastic team, who now is competing right now as the #1 ranked team, which most of you might know or not know. Around this area, it's Valpo, or Chesterton and Valpo girls are always right there, and we're always maybe third fiddle, while maybe the shoe is turned, and now we're on top of them for at least right now. So congratulations to those ladies as well. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. All I would add to the wrestling is that I didn't, it was out there, I should have known, but the wrestling team went to Illinois as the #1 Indiana team on Friday to wrestle the #1 Illinois team at Mount Carmel, and it came out victorious, I think, 31-29, but the atmosphere, a couple pictures were shared with me. The atmosphere looked unbelievable, and the experiences that these kids are getting, I don't know how well you guys all remember it, but when Jesse Mendez was here, and we were honoring him for his state championship last year, I remember the confidence that he had and the respect that he spoke with to us for inviting him here, and they're doing great things, and hopefully they can continue with not this week. And when does the individual states take place?
Well, they start sectionals on Saturday.
Sectionals are Saturdays.
So I'm getting the cart a little bit ahead of the horse,
Following
but
week is after that, yes.
I hope we'll have plenty of athletes down there in Indianapolis to go for a state title again
Just
this
to add
year.
on that, Mount Carmel Gymnasium, that's one of your oldest gymnasiums in the state of Illinois. It's the old balcony style, where you can sit up top.
It looked amazing.
So it made it for, the videos and everything I've seen are just incredible, because it's 1/2 the size of our gym. Might be accurate, maybe even a third. So it's close, and makes that, especially when you see wrestling up close like that, it just makes it more special, so.
Okay, well, that was all I had. My last thoughts was just, we've heard it on the board, we've heard it at these meetings before, and it's going to continue to just remind myself and everybody that the conversations that go back and forth on COVID policies, and they're draining, they're difficult, they're necessary, they're important, and we just always need to remember to respect everyone else's opinion. I think it's just that it's not for me to say that to anybody. I'm nobody to say that, but I think it's hope that as a community we can continue to respect one another. Anything else before we look for a motion of adjournment? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Angel. Second. And second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Thank you.